Well, I got 1 o'clock. What time do you got?
I think it's time for a mastery role play. So welcome, everybody. Welcome. And I'm in a different location, as you can say, Denny Grimes, and we're starting at 1 o'clock Eastern on the mastery of real estate. And I've got a special guest for you today. And generally speaking, we don't have people like this on very often because they're hard to come by. And so here in just a few minutes, Kristan Cole is going to be on because we always start with the thought of the day. And so when we were out walking this morning, she was on one of our coaching calls. I'm in Arizona right now, so I'm minus 3 hours from the East Coast, and she's having a call. We're walking sometime in around the 5 a.m. and she's having a coaching call back east. And she makes a statement I think is very profound. She's been known to say profound things, and I'm going to see if I can't get it right. She was talking to someone who is interviewing agents. And I think he asked the question, are you to a potential agent joining the team, are you interested in real estate or are you committed? And I thought that was a very succinct question. And you know, we use question-based listening enhanced conversations on this. So I've asked Kristan to come on for the first 10 or 15 minutes. You can chat in some questions if you have, and she's going to give you her thought of the day, and then we'll get into some other scripts and objections. You can also put those in the chat. I want to make sure I recognize Sonny Hammermeister, who is one of the co-hosts, and the voice, John McLeod. Say hello, Sonny and John.
Hello.
Hello, everyone, and sorry I do not have the voice microphone with me today because I am dealing with a puppy. As you can hear.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Well, as we get started, let's get going. I'm going to introduce Kristan Cole, and many of y'all know that she's my wife. So the good news about that is I don't have to pay her to be on this call, and she's got quite a big world. So many of you know her. If you don't, come and meet Kristan.
Okay.
Here we go.
Here we go.
If you want me to lower that.
Yeah, bring this baby down. I'm not quite as tall as you. Okay. Hey, everyone. So, you know, I'm sure this doesn't happen in any of your worlds, but one of the worlds I was talking to was one of the agents up in Toronto this morning. Yes, we have a call at 5 a.m. My time. It's 8 a.m. Canadian time. Anyway, he was having trouble with a couple of different things. One of them was attracting agents that stay in the industry. He actually quoted to me a quote, and he said 91% of all agents are out of the business within 10 years. Well, we know that 87% are out of the business within 5 years. So if you think about that, basically there's less than 1 or 2% that survive 10 years. So let me just see by a raise of your virtual hand, how many of you have been in business more than 10 years? Okay, how about more than 20? More than 30? And more than 35. Okay, how long, Don?
36.
36. Okay, I've been a real estate agent and broker for 38. Denny's been a real estate broker. Is it 40 or 39 yet?
39.
39. Okay, so here's the deal. Very few agents make it past 5 years, let alone past 10. And so his struggle was recruiting agents who are going to stick with it, because in Canada, it takes about a year to get your license. Think about that, to go through all the classes, right? They have much stricter laws than we do. Number two, think about the agents on his team. He said, not only am I having a tough time attracting agents that actually stay in the business, but I'm also having a difficult time keeping the agents that we have productive, because right now they want to have a little pity party. And they said that you know, everyone is in the office is, what did he say? Didn't say sad. He said they're all depressed. And the agents wanted Shaw to take them bowling. He goes, we're not going bowling. We're going to start making some phone calls. So anyway, here's the point. What I said to him is, I said, Shaw, you need to not only ask the agents that you're interviewing, but you also need to ask the agents that you already have. Are you just interested in being a real estate agent, or are you committed to being a real estate agent? Because they're very different. And the people that are committed to being a real estate agent are people that will do whatever it takes to win. Would you guys agree? We saw during the pandemic, about 40 or 50% of agents sat on the sidelines. They sat on the couch because they didn't know what to do. They're not bad people. They just didn't know what to do. The other half figured out a way to do, because ladies and gentlemen, newsflash, lead generation is not going away. It doesn't matter what the gap is, whether we have an oil crisis, whether we have a terrorist attack, whether or not we have COVID, whether or not we have a financial meltdown. The market and what happens is the same. It happens every single time. You can count on it. There's agents that don't know what to do. Think about this. In 1989, where I lived, there was just shy of 400 agents in my MLS. Well, by the time we got to the bottom of the market, there were 30. That's 30. So committed. Are you committed? So we were talking about this, and when you see a shift, it doesn't matter what the shift is. And ladies and gentlemen, lead generation is always your path. However, how we do lead generation and how we deliver the value may look very different. Case in point, during when COVID hit, and there were some locations that it was against the law, I say that sincerely, to do an open house, right? So we had to figure out, well, how do you do an open house differently? We didn't just stop working, right? Well, some did. We don't stop working. We figure out how to do it differently. We figure out how to deliver the same value. We figure out how, Don, did you have to figure out how to do door knocking different during the pandemic?
Yes, I did.
Did more people answer their door than before COVID?
About 70% of the people answered their doors.
So you actually had more luck during COVID doing door knocking than you did before COVID.
Yep.
So here's what I want you guys to get out of this today, because I'm going to say some things that are tried and true, that over 38 years of being in this business and going through at least 6 or 7 shifts in my life are just true. If you will just accept them and not try to say something like, you know what, everything's going to go back to normal next month. This is just, you know what I started hearing? This is so funny. In March, I started hearing, well, the reason that the number of sales are slowing down is because people are on spring break. Well, people take spring break every year. Then I started hearing in May here in Arizona, I started hearing, well, the reason the number of sales are slowing down is because there's so many graduations right now. Don't people graduate every May? So don't let yourself fall in the trap of making excuses for not getting into activity and maybe having to do things differently than you did them before. But lead generation never changes. Archie, are you really Sherry today? Just saying, it says you're Sherry. Yeah, I guess he is Sherry today. Anyway, lead generation never changes, but how we do it may change. So a couple of things I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then I'm just going to share with you a couple of thoughts that I shared both with the Northern Arizona agents and also our Biltmore Scottsdale agents this past week, and with some of my KCN people. So let me ask you guys a question, and you can come off of mute to answer. Give me one difference between the 2008 market and today. Somebody just tell me something different about today. Why this is not 2008. I'm telling you, it's not even remotely close to 2008. Let me just make this statement. The issue we have today is an affordability issue. That's not the issue we had in 2008. So what's different about today? Because you're going to get this question, right? People are going to say, is the housing market going to crash? Is this like 2008? I want you to have answers. So have your pen and paper ready. So you guys, okay, Denise, what's one?
I don't really have the numbers to back me up, but I believe there's a lot more cash in the market now. I think last time there were a lot of speculators buying multiple properties on very low, equity having to go into the properties. I think that's the difference.
That can be true. We do see people that are buying with cash from, especially in Arizona, from states like California. But I don't know that it's that there wasn't cash back then. I think there's some other things at play. But there is more cash today. What else, guys? What else is different? Yes, James.
Sorry. There's not an oversupply of inventory as there was in 08.
100%. 100%. Don.
That last market was 80% built on false investors and lender fraud, if you will, and this one is 80% owner occupants.
Awesome. So can we just say that the lending practices are different today than they were in 08?
Yes.
Okay, what else? Come on, you guys, I know you have all the answers. James.
They aren't giving out loans like candy.
Nathan, they are not. Very true. So we do have different lending practices. James, what else?
People have a lot more equity in their home than they did in 08.
Yeah, James, if they haven't pulled the cash out, they have equity in their home today that they didn't have in 08. Which means what? There's another indicator that was massive in 08. That
Less short sales.
Bingo, Archie. There were foreclosures and short sales out the wazoo in 2008. Right now, the number of foreclosures is minuscule, which, goes to James's point. Anything else? There's one other piece you guys have not pointed out yet.
Buyer demand.
Bam. Who just said that? Francelli. Buyer demand. So let's think about it. In 2008, supply was high. Today, supply is low or lower, definitely lower. Foreclosures and short sales were up. For today, they're minuscule. Buyer demand was non-existent. Buyer demand is very high today. Lending practices were completely different, and they tightened them up, and they're very different today. So right now, what we have is an affordability issue. That is what has slowed down the market. What's the average median sales price in the US right now?
430.
I think
4.25.
I'm guessing.
407, looking at NAR, and they can be wrong, but it was 407 through in June, $407,000. Do you know how much money you have to make? So right now they're saying the average homeowner is becoming a homeowner. 36% of their income is being used for housing, where in 2000, prior to the rates going up, only about 20% of our income was being used for housing. So do you guys see the affordability issue? How many people can afford a $407,000 house, even if they have two people working? So we have an affordability issue. We also have inflation. If we don't curb inflation, it will ruin our democracy. That's not me saying it. That's not a political statement. It's a truism about our country. So we have to curb inflation, and they only have so many levers to do it. And so they've got to not only slow down the economy, but they've got to slow down the housing market, and it's working. Raise your hand if you are not feeling a slowdown in the housing market. Okay, so everybody's feeling it. Now here's the thing, we feel it before the numbers show it, because the numbers are rear view mirror. We're seeing what's happening right now. That's why I go what I call around the world, or around the US and Canada, every single Friday morning. And I'm on calls from 5 in the morning until 9 a.m. with teams across the country to see what they're feeling that has not shown up in the data yet. Okay? Because big teams will feel it before an agent who only does 5 transactions a year. Do you guys all agree? So here's the 4 points I want to share with you, but my husband keeps coming over here by me. He must have something he wants to say.
No.
Oh, no. Okay. He's just pacing. Okay. So we call it right now, what's happening, what they're trying to do is flatten the curve of the growth cycle without taking us negative. That's very hard to do. That's trying to land a 747 on an island. It's very hard to do. The Fed almost never gets it right. And they're not trying to get it wrong. It's just, you're trying to land a 747 on a postage stamp. So they're going to overshoot the runway one way or the other. Okay. And so just understand that this next 6 months may be very messy. How many of you love change? Yeah, me either. I've learned to love change. I've also learned to love a change in the real estate market, because what I can tell you is the first time I went through it in 1989, it was the scariest thing I ever went through in my entire life. And at that time, just for any of you who are thinking, gosh, at my age, can I really accumulate wealth? The answer is yes. And what I want to say is, when I went through that first shift, I'm, you know, married with 2 kids and a dog living in an efficiency apartment above a business. Doesn't that sound fun? Okay. So it was very scary. Like, oh my gosh, why did I go to college for 4 years and study finance and real estate only to be, you know, I started when it was going like that. I sold one of my first houses. I sold a $250,000 house, 3-bed, 2-bath, double car garage. And I sold it in May of 1989 for 25 grand for Fannie Mae. Just let that settle in on you. If you think this market's bad, but if, for a show of hands, and then I'm going to give you my four points real quick. How many of you have, remind me how many of you guys have been in the market more than 5 years? Okay, so what I'm about to say is going to apply to the rest of you, and just be a gentle reminder to those of you who raised your hands. Number one, I would say when the market shifts, you have to take a different attitude towards leads. I call it leave no lead behind. Leave no lead behind. How is that different from 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago? It's something like this. If I had had a conversation with you as a buyer's agent 5 years ago, I would have said to you, Desi, hey, you know, when a buyer calls in and wants to go see a house, you set an appointment and you make them come into the office and you give them a buyer presentation and you make them sign a buyer's agreement before you ever put those people in your car. That's what I would have told you. That's not what I would tell you today. What I would tell you today is if that buyer calls you, you get your butt in your car and you go show them the house. And then you have the conversation with them about, gee, let's sit down. If this house wasn't a fit for you, awesome. Let's sit down and figure out what's important to you about buying a home. Let's get that criteria, you know, settled out, and let's have a buyer consultation and get ready to help you buy a home. Doesn't that sound good, Desi? Right, because right now, speed to the lead matters. If there's a buyer who actually wants to buy, do you want to be their agent right now? If they actually want to buy, right? So if you tell them you've got to come in for a buyer consultation and sign a buyer's agreement and blah, 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 what do you think they're going to do? They're going to hang up and they're going to call another agent. So what I'm telling you seems like heresy, but I'm saying just get in the car and go show them the flipping house and then have the conversation with them. So leave no lead behind. Number two, or also don't get paralyzed. The loneliest place in the world on Monday morning at 8 a.m. is a real estate office. Someone just shot a video of an office in Colorado. There were 2 people in the entire market center. He videoed the whole thing. Like, what are people doing? So, you've got to uncover every rock until that buyer buys or dies. But when they call, when they email, when they text, it's an internet lead or a Facebook lead or a Zillow lead, or I don't care what kind of a lead, engage them and go show them a house so that you can start the conversation. 87% of all the buyers bought with the first realtor they were in communication with last year. Okay. So leave no lead behind. And when I'm talking to you right now, I want you to think of it this way. Are you committed to this business? And if you are, then understand we're at war. This is not peacetime real estate. This is wartime real estate. And the 4 points I'm going through with you right now, and I've already gone over a few minutes, so Denny's going to have to give me a few more minutes, is going to be your battle plan. Okay? Because we're at war. How you behave at war is different than you behave in peacetime. In peacetime, we're going to the market center. We're eating pizza, singing kumbaya, and we are never saying anything that would ever offend anyone. And we're being super nice, and we're helping everyone. When we're at war, I'm not saying we're not doing those things, but I would say this. You've got to get after it. You've got to get after it. There is not a market shift that I've ever been through that I didn't have to do double or sometimes triple the activity that I had to do when it wasn't a shifting market to get the same result and to get the same outcomes I want. Now, what I would say is go to the market center and do a call night with your pals and have some competition and have some fun and have some pizza. and help your fellow agent. So peacetime versus wartime. We have an affordability issue right now. We have no idea what the Fed's really going to do. We know that whatever they do is probably not going to land on the postage stamp. So it's just hold on, because the next 6 months is going to be a little rocky. But what I can tell you is that back in 1984, when I sold my first house, interest rates were 14%, and I sold 36 houses my first year. So if we can't sell houses at 6% and 5%, we probably should go get a job at Walgreens or Walmart or Target. Okay. It's all your mindset. I didn't know any better. 14%. That's why I always say buy the payment. I used to say buy the payment, not the price. Now I say buy the payment, not the interest rate. Can you afford the payment? This is an affordability issue. Okay. Number two, just remember, I sold those 36 houses my first year with no fax machine, no computer, and no cell phone. That means you actually got in the car and drove your offer to the other office and presented it to the seller and to the agent. I know, I see some of your faces. I know, it's awful. It was awful. Okay, number two, you've got to examine your systems or your lack thereof systems. Let me ask you, you might need a complete system overhaul, because how many of you are prepared and have a system with a follow-up plan to make sure you're calling your sellers every Monday and telling them and interpreting what happened in the market the past week and helping them either reposition or do whatever they need to do to sell their home? Right. Do you have a system? Meaning it's in the computer and it tells you what to do every day. It tells you to follow up with your seller. It like you're not going to forget about them, because the biggest complaint against realtors, they never communicate with me. How many of you are prepared to have your seller make an offer to the buyer? You're like going, what are you talking about, Kristan? Well, I just have been in real estate long enough to know. And so Archie, role play this with me for a second. You're the buyer's agent, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm the selling agent. I mean, the listing agent. Okay. So Archie, I see your offer or I see that you've shown the house and you know, what was the feedback from the buyer on this house?
Well, the feedback thought that the price was too high. That was the biggest feedback.
Okay. Okay.
Otherwise, they love the house.
Was there anything else? You know, Archie, tell me the carpet's bad.
Well, I was just going to say that they didn't like the paint color.
They didn't like the paint color. Okay.
Correct.
Fabulous. Anything else at all, Archie?
Just some small things, you know, that they thought they needed to have fixed.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, other than that, it was just some minor, you know, flaws.
Well, Archie, I don't know if it'll work for your buyer. I don't know if it'll work for my seller, but what if you made me a list of those things and I went back to my seller to see if, you know, if your buyer were to offer a full price offer, that they would actually put in the new carpet, new paint, and blah, 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 blah. Would that be of interest, do you think, to your buyer?
I think that would be a great interest for my buyer if it came from you directly. Yes.
Okay. So you guys see my point? Now it's sellers making offers to the buyers, but that means you've got to be highly engaged in the question-based conversations that Denny's teaching you, so you can ask the other agent. Because if they just say the price is too high, what does that tell you? Maybe the price isn't too high if it had the right paint and carpet and blah, blah, blah. Maybe the price isn't too high if the lender will buy down the interest rate 2 points. Do you guys see what I mean? So you've got to dig and find out why. You know, if they just hate the house, well, that's one thing. So you've got to have a system for you. I mean, and you have to understand how to make an offer, a seller to a buyer. Does that make sense? Okay. So do you have those systems in place? And the number one system you need to have in place is what? If I call and I call today, like till I can't call anymore, and I get an appointment, am I lucky or am I good? I'm probably just lucky. I'd rather be lucky than good. But the truth is, it's just a fluke that you happen to actually connect with somebody on the day that they actually were going to like, oh, I was just going to call you. The truth is, the key is in the follow-up. So right now, if you don't have a follow-up plan to be following up with your A, B, and C buyers, your A, B, and C sellers, if you don't have a follow-up plan to be following up with your past clients and doing it consistently, especially like the top people that give you business all the time, you're not going to win. You know why? Because somebody else is going to introduce them to a relationship and get between you and your client that you did have that you lost because you didn't stay in touch. So number 2, examine your systems. Do you have them? And if you don't, go create them. Get someone to create them. Make sure that no matter what, you overly communicate. Do you think your agent, if you were a seller, could they ever overly communicate with you? Would you ever say, Mr. Real Estate Agent, would you just stop calling me and telling me all this vital information I need to know about what's going on the market? Can you imagine that? Has anybody ever had a seller or buyer tell them that? Stop communicating so much with me. I hate it. So number 1, no buyer left, no lead left behind. Number 2, have the systems that you need in place. And if you don't have them, create them, especially a follow-up system to follow up with your past clients, your SOI, your sphere of influence, your buyers and your sellers. Number 3, making sure that you overly communicate. So 4 things, a leader has to show up, and you're a leader, whether you're leading you or you're leading a team. Show up, be visible, overly communicate, and have a proven plan. You do that, you will build confidence in everyone you're around. So the number 3 with overly communicating, it also requires you to examine your expenses. When I say examine, is there a difference between look at them and examine them? When you look at them, you go, oh yeah, my AT&T bill, got to have my cell phone, check. When you examine them, you go, AT&T bill, is there any way I could get it lower? Let me have my assistant, or let me call and find out if there's a better family plan out there that can reduce my costs. I want you to look at every single expense that you spend money on and ask yourself 2 questions. Can I get it lower? And if I can't get it, and if I can get it lower, can I actually get it to 0? Trust me, you will think very differently about your expenses when you're asking yourself the question, can I get it to 0? Let me ask you, John, could you get the cost of holding open houses, holding a high level 7 open house to 0?
My cost? Sure.
Right. So it all of a sudden your mind starts getting creative when you say, how can I versus can I? So that's a whole nother, I teach a whole Saturday class on expenses, but just the point being is examine your expenses. Don't just look at them. Okay. So your money system may need a complete overhaul. So I'd say this, cut the fat out now. Because when we're in peacetime mode, typically we're in growth mode. We're creating new programs. We're going after new business, new pools of opportunity. This is not that time. This is wartime. And in wartime, we do not spend money like that. We're not talking about growing. We're talking about surviving, making sure the business survives out the other side and thrives. Okay. So what that means is cut the fat, cut the muscle if you must. That means things that you really enjoy having in the business, but they're not so critical that the business couldn't operate without them. Never, ever cut the bone, because if you do, you will limp forever. So cut the fat, cut the muscle if you must, just don't cut the bone. The bone would be lead generation, training, and coaching. You never, ever, ever cut those, because that's you've got to stay in business. So, and the final one is number 4. So if you have a team, examine your team members. Remember, I said it's wartime versus peacetime. In peacetime, you have the luxury of creating new programs and having people on your team that go create new programs and new lead gen programs and new marketing and new this and new that and everything else new. During wartime, you don't have that luxury. You look at the people in your world and you ask yourself this question: who do I need? Who do I have? And who may need to go? Because during wartime, you want to make sure that you keep the people that can execute on your systems. every time, I'll be very candid. We have some people on our team, and right now we are in execution. That's it. Don't bring me some new program. That's not what we're doing. This is wartime. We're executing on what works, and what works is lead generation, overly communicating with people, follow-up plans, actually getting your butt to pick up the phone and call people and have meaningful conversations with them. Don't bring me some new program. So make sure that you are keeping the people on your team, if you have a team that can execute on your systems. And if you don't have the systems I identified in number 2, have them create them for you. Okay, so that was all 4. Leave no lead behind, examine your systems, overhaul them, cut your expenses, cut the muscle if you must, and examine your capacity. Make sure you've got people on your team that will execute on their plan, not just go try to create new programs to really avoid the one thing that they need to do, which is execute on their plan. So questions about that? Poke holes in it. Tell me I'm full of crap.
Kristan, I just about to send you a text. We have to paint our faces blue and white. This is the Braveheart call from Mel Gibson and William Wallace, right?
Well, it is because we don't know how long it's going to last, Don.
No, we don't.
We can't predict what the Fed's going to do. We just know it's probably going to be bumpy.
And the conversation, lucky and good, we always rather be lucky than good. But when you said that, when you said that, the more we put ourselves in a position to win, the gooder we get with that,
the luckier we get.
We're going to get. So you can have some luck as long as you get good. As long as I get better and good at doubling and tripling my lead generation.
And this is a skilled agent market, and most agents have never been through that market, so they don't have the skill set. The number one skill set you can gain is being on this call on Friday and learning the questions that you need to be asking and talking about relevant issues in the market right now. That is the number one thing you can do. Any other questions, statements?
Yeah, Kristan, I have one. When you talk about leaving no lead behind, what are you doing on the seller side? Like, for example, I have chosen not to go to several list appointments because chatting with them on the phone, they want what their neighbor got 6 months ago. I say, well, if we can't get that, are you willing to sell it here?
Yep.
But they don't have that motivation. Well, if I can get this, I'll sell. If you're saying it's probably going to be here, I won't sell. No motivation.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, I can't help you. And I'm like, next.
So here's what I'd say. I'm not going to steal Denny's thunder because that's on it. That's what he's going to cover.
Yeah, that's
today.
what we're talking about today, Denise.
So I'll let him answer that. Any other questions for me?
I just wanted to, are you able to hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Okay. I just wanted to mention, speaking on your lower the expenses, just a very specific thing, just in case anyone has not taken advantage of it. AT&T does actually, to your specific example, you can lower your bill just for being a realtor. So just in case there's anybody who hasn't done that, make sure you do that because that's something you can do today, right now.
And I forget if it's 5 or 10%, but it's one of those. Thank you. Ryan is the new director of marketing for the KCN organization. So thank you, Ryan, for that information. I'll turn it over to you, Denny.
Awesome, thank you. So appreciate that. You can give Kristan the applause with the emojis if you want to. And that's now you know why she has this big role. She gets right down to it. So what I'd like to do is there's 3. Let's raise this desk up a little bit. That might be better.
I'm shorter than you.
There's 2 seller questions I'd like to talk about today and 1 buyer question. The seller questions are this. Number 1 is the question that Denise just up. Is that do you or don't you take the listing? So let's talk about that. And another thing that I'm seeing a lot of agents start to have questions about is because they haven't had to do it in the last couple of years is how do you service a listing if it hasn't sold in the first week or 2 or month or 2? So we can have those conversations. So John, if you're interested in becoming involved in this on a role play, just raise your hand. John is looking at that and we'll call on you. And then from a buyer's perspective, I love what Kristan had to say, and we can go into it a little bit deeper, is that, and I know some people think it's going to be heresy, it's about building the relationship with the buyer. I know that we used to tell them A, B, C, D, if you want to buy a home, these are the things you have to do. And oh, by the way, you have to wash my car and watch my dog when I'm away, and they would be willing to do it. It's changing out there. Before we move on, there's one point I want to share with you that drives me crazy. And that is the real estate world is doing their best to deny that the market's changing. Now, NAR does not want anyone to think that the market's changing. Other lenders are saying things and holding back information. They're not lying. They're just not telling the whole truth. And so you guys, and I'm going to bring it to you on this mastermind call. I'm going to tell you what the real story is. Most people won't. And you'll know it. I shared this last week when a lender came in, God bless her soul, but and their company came up with a pro forma for a seller, you know, or a buyer with a 4% growth rate. I don't know that we're going to see a 4% growth rate in the coming year or two. We might see a 20% fall in value. And then the best thing you can expect the real estate related entities to do is to say, yeah, we're going to be flattening out. Case in point, really fast, is that Kristan we listen when we are together, she listens to this podcast that summarizes news from around the world and puts it in about 10 minutes. And there's somebody out there that said, you know, the real estate prices are up 20%. And so when I heard that, now you guys, I want you to start thinking like that. Now, I only know my market, so I'm not going to comment on your market or the national. However, you should know. Does anybody have any antenna pop up when you hear that someone say right now that the market is up 20% in sales price so far in 2022? Does anything pop into your mind?
My BS meter just went off the chart.
Well, okay, so John, it's BS, but why is that BS? Are they lying?
Well, it's tough. It's tough to know if they're lying, Denny, if they're not telling you what their benchmarks are. Now, if their benchmarks are one house that happened to sell in January and then resold for 20% more now, that's not really a whole story of the market now, is it?
Yeah. Thanks, John. Any other thoughts out there? Does anyone at least is there something going off? Is there a BS meter going off in your brain that does not ring right? And you guys have to understand this, because the seller that you go meet with, either to pick up a listing or to go and ask for a repositioning, so you said, what are you talking about? I just heard the market's up 20%. Let me tell you what they're doing. And I'm going to use my numbers very quickly. So when you look at January's median sales price compared to June's median sales price in our area, the market's up 13% because January was 400, June is 450. Now, they're not lying. It's up, not 20% for us. It's up 13%. So I can say the market's up 13%. However, what are we not looking at? We're not looking at the trend. Yes, it's up from January. However, it's starting to trend down because it was almost 470 in April and May. And now it's falling. You see, it's a half truth. And they may say year over year, you know, our market's up. Get this, Denise, 24% year over year. See, that's how the real estate industry will use stats in order to put positive information out there. They believe they can stop the change, slow the change of the market by putting out a lot of erroneous information. The information does not drive buyers' motivation. It's their emotion. So I just wanted you to know that. So let's go into a seller conversation. John, did anyone brave enough raise their hand and want to participate in I'm going to be the agent, and I want someone to be the seller that maybe they have low motivation to sell, or we can go into a seller.
All right, Patricia has got her hand up. Patricia saw the opportunity to have the easiest role.
Yes.
Take the layup where you can, Patricia. It's all you.
All right.
Why am I not seeing you? Okay, Patricia, where are you? Patricia, I see you now. Okay, so you are a seller that is considering selling?
Correct.
All right, awesome. So I met with you. I turned it over. We talked about what we do, and you like me. And are you ready to move forward, Patricia?
Well, kind of. You know, I'm a little nervous because I'm seeing the market. You know, my friends got a lot of money and things are sitting, so I want to get what they got.
And what was that, Patricia?
Well, my neighbors got $50,000 more than their listing price in their house.
Okay. Other than that, I mean, so would you like to get $50,000 more in your listing price?
I certainly would.
So if you get $50,000 more in your asking price, you're ready to list with me?
Yes. I got to move.
And so when we went over, so let's just assume we had a pricing conversation. And so let's put a number on it. What did your seller get?
My seller got $775 for their home.
Oh, yeah, man, that's hard. So John can tell me. So they had it listed at $725, right?
Correct.
And they got $775.
Correct.
And when was that?
That was April.
Awesome. Okay, so then, and based on the numbers that we said, where do you think, based on the numbers we talked about, what initial listing price do you think we should be going at right now?
Well, considering I need to move, I'm not really sure. So that's where I'm a little concerned as to where should we be?
Well, when you look at the most recent past sales, we're seeing that some of the homes in your neighborhood are now listed within the $600,000 bond. So for example, if we were listed in the mid sixes at 650, and maybe the market would go up to 7, assuming that happened, would that meet your needs of getting $50,000 over asking price?
Well, considering 650 and 775, that's like $100,000 difference.
Okay, so yes, do you think the market's changed at any time since now in April?
Well, I know that, you know, just looking at statistics and listening to people that, you know, it has changed, but I don't think $100,000 gap.
Okay, so now watch this, you guys. You've seen this before. I'm going to land the plane right now. I am not going to get into a fist fight on the initial asking price, even if I know that the market's slipping away. So are you ready to list with me today at 775?
Yes.
Awesome. Knuckle bump. We're going to do that. Now, what conversation? John, what's the next question I'm going to ask? You know this by heart.
What if the market says no?
There you go. So you said you have to go, and I'm not going to take the time, but now is when you go back into motivation. She wants to move to Akron, Ohio. Why? I have no idea. That's where I'm from. And you need to be there in the next 4 months. Patricia, what are you going to do if the market says no?
If the market says no, then then I know that it's not going to give me what I'm looking for. So I'm willing to, go with what the market says.
Okay. I'm going to stop right there. Now, John's going to pull up a sheet here in a second. You have shared privileges, I assume, John. In just a second, I want you to share. Right now is more important than ever that when you meet with your sellers up front, when you have your follow-up with them up front, you've got to show them the 3 outcome. Now, I don't know. I know I'm not going to get into a fist fight with a seller because it's going to take them some time to come into reality. If a seller has motivation, in the past market, which Kristan and I have a discussion, we really think maybe the market peaked in March or April, and it's starting to fall. And I believe you're going to see more evidence of falling as we move forward. So I'm not going to not take the listing because the seller, still wants what the neighbor got. And then here's why: if they have motivation, they will capitulate to the market if you have the right conversation. So now, John, let's throw up the sheet. If you can do that really quick and share screen. If you're not using the sheet or something similar to it, it's going to be very difficult for you then. This is exactly what I would do. I basically have got her commitment to take the listing. Is it aggressive? Yes. Now, the issue is with motivation. If they don't have motivation, that's another discussion. Is she going to list with someone?
Yes.
And can you tell me with 100% certainty that it won't sell higher than what you think it would sell for?
What I think it would sell for? Not sure.
Well, I'm just asking any agent, if
Okay.
a seller wants a number, can you say with 100% certainty, it would not be at the number that they want or a number higher than what you think it would sell for? We spent the last 18, 20 months, 30 months of listing homes and watching them sell for more. So the thesis of that is we don't know what it's worth exactly until we expose it. So my philosophy is if they have motivation, take the listing, then have this conversation. Do you realize, Patricia, that when we list your home, here are the 3 outcomes. I won't read it all to you. You've got it right there. Take a camera. If you want a PDF of that, or you can use it for your listing presentation, just email us. And Sonny or John will put in the email at coachdennygrimes@gmail.com. Will work probably. Coach Denny Grimes at Gmail. We'll send you the PDF of that. And so basically, so let me ask you then, Patricia, last question. I'm going to go over these 3 outcomes. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is this, is that every week, and it's servicing the listing is going to be a major role in our, like Kristan said, over communicate. You cannot let a week go by, more than a week go by without talking to a seller. And I'm going to always go back. It's week 1. Patricia, hey, listen, we're at 775. Do you have your fishing sheet handy?
Yes, I do.
All right. So we've been on the market now 7 days. You've approved the listing. Everything is, she's approved all that. And we had 1 showing. What outcome are we at?
We're at number 1.
Okay. And what is the remedy to that?
Reposition.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Now, I would love to have you go on all my listing presentations and have those answers, because most of my sellers aren't ready yet in a week. However, that's the question. Okay, so now we're going to have a reposition conversation. Let's assume you say, no, I'm not ready to reposition.
Okay, no.
Okay.
No, I think we got some time.
Got that? See that? She's got motivation. So she knows she's on a timeline. So I'm just kind of curious, if you went to the doctor and you had a rash and the doctor gave you a prescription and the rash kept getting worse, meaning the prescription wasn't working. I'm just kind of curious, how long would you take the wrong medicine before you decided to change it to the right medicine?
Wouldn't be long.
Also, what else can I bring up? All right, so it's awesome. You're driving a boat, we can wait. I just want you to be aware of a couple of different things. In the last week, there was another listing that came. Now, this is the pain point I want you to remember for sellers that are being stubborn, but where they are price point wise. One of the biggest fears that can happen. Yeah, there could be a sucker punch to the economy, like a 9/11 event, and the way the world's going. I mean, anything can happen. However, there's something that's a higher probability of happening, you guys. This is the kiss of death to a seller. And what would that be?
Another house coming to the market.
Say it again, Patricia.
Another house coming to the market on their block.
They're going to have somebody with maybe had a stronger conversation or stronger motivation or whatever. And now when someone lists a home in that neighborhood, at 625, what are they doing? They're putting downward pressure on that asking price. And now the seller is in a soup. That's the pain point. They can be stubborn all they want, thinking they have all the time in the world. However, the danger is they're going to get into a bidding war on the other side. We call it the slinky going down the stairs. Who remembers that? I know in Florida, we don't have stairs. So we didn't get to play that game a lot. However, how do you catch the slinky going down the stairs? The answer, there's only 2 ways. And this is what I want you to write this down. It's a great analogy. You've got to get ahead of it. And so when someone starts doing that, now we're having conversations with sellers. Well, listen, that's 625, and we're making the numbers up, of course. The next one will be lower. So they're going to have to come in under that, maybe 600. So the 2 ways to catch a slinky are, number 1, to get ahead of it. The only other alternative is to let it hit bottom. And that's not really cool for sellers. Anybody find that helpful? I really encourage you. Is anybody using this sheet right here, and do you find it beneficial? Just say yes or no. Tell me, because if you're not using it, this sheet is golden.
I'm using it. I just give it to my sellers Thursday, Wednesday when we went on the contract. And they agreed to reduce the price in a week if we don't have offers.
Awesome. Good.
Using it 3 weeks, Denny, and love it.
Awesome. All right. Well, really, there's no branding on there. You can put your branding on there and use it. Talk to them at the listing, then every follow-up. All right, it's week 2. Patricia, do you have your fishing form handy?
Yes.
All right. What outcome are we at?
Oh, we've had some showings, but no offers yet. So that's better.
All right. So what's the remedy? You notice, I'm going to ask questions. And will someone tell me why I'm asking them what outcome we're at?
Makes them think a little bit.
Makes them engage.
Because we may say, well, we're at outcome 1. And just like she said, well, we've had a couple of showings. Now we're at a disagreement. You need to involve them in that and ask them the question. So like when you come in and I'm the doctor, you come in, well, how do you think the rash is doing? Well, it seems to be itching more. Okay. Well, what do we need to do? You all see the benefit in doing that. Where do you want to go next, you guys? And you can put it, just speak out. You want to go into a buyer situation, or do you want to go on to a service, a seller that's, well, we've just kind of covered the seller. What would you like to cover here in the next 6 minutes?
Denny, I got one quick question for you. Back to the listing, when also if their property is actually going to be having to list for less, and they're buying in the same community, to the understanding that the property that they're going to sell, isn't going to be the same price either.
Right. Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, the price they're going to sell versus the price they're going to buy is also not going to be the same price as it was then also. So it's going to just typically pan out, or it's going to level out.
Yeah, that's why you really have to have a keen understanding of what they're doing next. Clearly, I could have used an interesting question to Patricia saying, okay, so you want to sell where your neighbors got last April. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, so then let me ask you, you're going to be buying a home where you want to buy a home in Akron, Ohio, where you're going for what they sold for in April, or do you want to pay today's price? That's called a checkmate question. So nice job. Where are we going? We got 6 minutes, guys.
So if Patricia had said, if you can't get me 700, I'm going to sit here. I don't want to do the 3 outcomes. Would you have taken that listing?
Well, if they don't have any motivation and they're really off base, that'll be up to you. But I think there's some circumstances, but my meter is leaning towards a no on that. And unless there's some sort of ancillary benefit of maybe you can have some open houses and pick up some people or whatever. So that would be my blink. I don't know what you guys would do. So that would be my blink.
Denny, several months ago, and I still kind of subscribe to this, you came out with a prolific statement that was, you can't reposition a seller's price on a listing you don't have. So I'm still of the opinion, and it goes against a little bit of my grain, you take the listing, and with good communication and strategy, I'm going to take the listing.
I got that. And again, at some point in time, to a glass of wine conversation, which you take it no matter what the motivation was. This is a conversation that I'll have with a seller many times in that category, guys, is this. Don, just let me go with you just for a minute. You're the seller. Okay, so let me ask you, so would you admit right now that basically your expectations, what you want, is aggressive to what basically we're seeing happen right now in your neighborhood? Would you at least admit to that?
I agree. Yep.
Watch this, you guys. And if we could find a buyer at the number you want, would you consider that you're winning?
Oh, absolutely. I'd buy you dinner. You bet.
So, all right. So if it happens, and do you consider that a win for me?
Sure. I get more, you get more.
Right. Now, what I've just done is establish the point that we are on the same team. Number one. Secondly, all right. So let me ask you, if the market says no, you are going to basically say you're just stay put. Is that correct?
Yeah. Within reason, I'll just stay put.
And there's a bazillion things we could go down the road on motivation, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm just not going to do that. This is the point I want to make. many times that people that you think you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and you take the listing, and after 60 days, you know, or whatever, they say, well, look, you know, it hasn't sold. They end up bad-mouthing you. So here's my question, Don. At the end of 60 days, we've just admitted it's going to be aggressive. The market continues to say no. Here's what I want to know, because this will be my determination if I take the listing. Number one is, at the end of 60 days, if you will think, Denny, knuckle bump me, you're an awesome guy. I know you put a lot of work into it, and we were reaching for the ring and we didn't get it. I'll use you again and I'll refer you to everyone. I'm willing to work with you because you win, I win. However, at the end of 60 days, you think I'm some sort of bump on the log because I did not create a miracle. I mean, if you're with Keller Williams, and I say this all the time in tongue in cheek, Keller is on my side, but I'm not Helen Keller. I'm not a miracle worker. So if that's the case, you guys, Don, then I'm not going to take the listing. So which is it going to be in 60 days?
I know I'm reaching, Denny. I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't blame you.
All right. We got 5 minutes. What's up next?
Any
questions, any comments?
Denny, this is JP. Hey, I'm in that situation right now. I do have a listing that it's at 475. We actually got into it on a contract that he wanted to buy a house. So we got a contingency before we even had the house listed. Got it listed, could not get an offer on his house. So we had to back out of that contingency. And he will not lower his price at all whatsoever. You know, he still thinks he can still get that amount. And now we did our open house about Saturday ago. We ended up coming up with, you know, comps is showing about that time about 425 now, but he's still not willing to do anything about it.
Got it. So why is he selling, JP?
Well, he's only selling because it's a 2-acre parcel. He was wanting to downsize to a smaller parcel with only him and his son. So he doesn't really have to sell, you know, so I'm at the point now, like, do I just kind of let this go, or do I kind of move forward with it?
Well, I'll ask from the crowd what question you would ask. I'll just give one really quick, and the rest of you guys we can close out with this is, well, JP, let's say that the market never comes to that level, never. So then are you saying you're okay being here the rest of your life?
No, absolutely. And I did have that conversation with them already too, telling them that it's changing.
No, you need a role play. You need a role play. So if we ask you a question, you got a role play.
Okay. No, not really. I mean, I want a smaller size home.
Well, your expectations, the market's saying no to you. So you'll either have to say yes to the market or stay there the rest of your life. What do you want to do? That's all right. There's an angle. Who's got an angle? You're dealing with that seller. JP's going to role play with you. What question would you ask JP?
Why is a smaller home important to you and your family?
Well, because it's only me and my son now, and I don't want to take care of the 2 acres anymore. So it's trying to get down to at least a quarter to a half acre now.
Good. There's one question. What's another one? Anyone think about asking the meat thermometer one? John, what's that one?
You know, I'm sitting here just kind of marveling at your pain versus pleasure question. You went right. I mean, you went right for the jugular on that one.
I just had a birthday. I don't have, you know, I might as well get down to it, right?
Denny, you're just like everybody else. The number of birthdays we all have is shrinking every year. So you're no different. So
what's the meat thermometer, John? You remember it?
You know what, Denny? My head is so filled right now.
You feel like the market is working for you or against you?
Come to my rescue, somebody.
Do you feel like the market is working for you or against you?
There you go. You guys just in stereo. Nice job, guys. All right. So James, you were the first one I heard. So James, that's the question. Did you hear it, JP?
I did hear it, and right now it's working against me.
All right. What's your follow-up, James?
All right. How do you think it's going to be another month from now? Do you think it's going to be better or worse for you?
See, you guys, I want you to marvel at the simplicity of this method. You're heaping coals on their brains. Go ahead, keep going. JP.
Well, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, kind of hear all kinds of craziness out there saying it could just be through these election times. Is something to hold out on? Is it something that's going to happen? Could it be 2 years, 3 years like they're saying? I'm kind of up in the air, so I really don't have a solid answer, you know, if I should lower my price or just kind of hang on there.
Well, if you think the market's working against you now, how long are you willing to wait and let it continue to work down?
Well, like I was saying, at this point, I really don't, I mean, I could stay here. I don't have to move. It's just that I just wanted a smaller house.
How about
Denny.
this question? How do you feel, JP, of waking up every day knowing your home is worth less?
Sucks.
Well, you could change that.
And how would I change that?
Well, I mean, the market is screaming at us that people want to live here. However, you're stopping them. So the buyers, you've heard the golden rule, he who has the gold makes the rule. So there's a number of buyers wanting to live here, waiting on you to come and meet them.
No, absolutely. I kind of agree with that too. Just in my area where my house is at, there's only like one other home on the market there. And I think it's about $40,000 more than what I'm asking for. So I figure I'm in the price range.
Sure, you're both on the losing side. So how would you like to be a winner? Why not ask the right, straight to the point question? All right, nice job, JP. Hey, Desi. All right, any ahas today? Sorry to get you off guard, John. I know you've taken care of a puppy. You're a little distracted. So any ahas? Let's from Kristan's 15 minutes. It was 35, or mine. Come on, guys. Come
Penny,
on.
I like what you just said. Never really heard that. You know, there are a number of buyers out there right now, and you're stopping them from buying a home.
No, you're stopping them from buying your home.
Right, right.
Nice, Don. What else?
I've got one.
Yeah.
I'm not with Keller Williams, but you almost wanted me to join Keller Williams because of your great analogy about Helen Keller. That's killer. I love it.
You can still use it. There's signs out there with Keller on it, but you know, we're not Helen Keller. I dare somebody to have enough guts to use that one.
Mark, you can always come talk to us. There's the shameless plug. There you go. So Denny said last week, guys, there's never a shortage of buyers in any market. There's only a shortage of what?
Motivated sellers.
Unrealistic sellers.
Realistic sellers, right? That's the only thing there's a shortage of in any market. This is no different.
There you go. Great. Thank you guys for being on. We're a few minutes past. Love you, mean it. We'll be on here next week. Let us know if you want that 3 outcome sheet. Let us know. Send me an email.
It has been uploaded and everyone can download it in the chat. It is right there waiting for you.
All right.
Have a good meeting. Thank you.
You bet. See you guys.
Be careful.
Hey, Denny,
out there,
happy
Denny.
birthday. And that slinky analogy was perfect with the
Happy
downward
day.
pressure. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You're not taking credit for that.
Slinky?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denny.